Welcome to My Favorite CX, a podcast that celebrates exceptional customer experiences. To listen to today's, please choose from one of the following options.
Welcome to My Favorite Customer Experience, the podcast that celebrates exceptional customer experiences. I'm Chris Holt from Holt CX Consultancy here in the UK, and today I'm joined by Tom Oxley, Workplace Director at Bamboo Mental Health. Tom, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me in.
And Tom, I know when we were talking, we were kind of saying, how do we make this relevant to customer experience and mental health at the same time? But I think, looking at your bio, you assist organizations in helping sort their mental health out and providing practical and authentic support to create healthier working cultures. And I think if I ask you, who are you and what do you do? I think there's still a lot of relevance to that with the customer experience industry.
Thank you. I review workplaces and how they support people on mental health or not. And I run interviews, must have done 450 interviews with people with lived experience of mental health. I run surveys and look through the HR policies and procedures. And I'll tell you the difference between an organization that supports its people and keeps them and those that don't is human connection. And it all boils down to, am I having a positive relationship with my employer? So I've been doing this work for about 14, 15 years. Not the first, but one of the early independent people into mental health and well-being at work. And that's off the back of my own stuff. I had 3 months out with stress, anxiety, and depression. And I had, I'd overdone it. I mean, I'd burnt the candle at both ends. And if there was another end, I would have burnt that as well. I thought I was invincible. I wasn't taking my holiday. I was overworking. I was drinking like a fish, And nobody really intervened because it looked like I was succeeding on the surface. And then, but underneath, I wasn't. And this is where the story gets positive. I was saved by being noticed, human to human. Something I don't know where you are, but you're not right, and you need to go and find out where you are, and then come back and let me know, and we'll work it out from there. So that's what I'm trying to do with organizations. Yeah.
And I think that's quite prescient. Before we hit record, we were both talking about cricket. We're recording this the day after Ben Stokes resigned, and that was one of the things that had kind of come up in interviews of him just not being quite right. And after the case, people are going, I did notice that, but I didn't necessarily do anything. Whereas for you, it sounds like someone did notice and decided to take action.
They did. Thank you. And when we look at things like well-being in the workplace or mediation in the workplace and resolving conflict in the workplace, it is about those early noticing moments that, like a conversation, informal, no skills, but hang on, I'm seeing this, what's going on, is really important in a lot of places. And I think it's probably important in terms of customer service stuff as well. Right? Just giving yourself permission for your guts to read, as they naturally will, when things are a bit off, things aren't right. And that's such important data.
I think it's, if I think about my own journey as well, I know that you mentioned conflict at work and things, and it was something that I'd experienced a lot. And actually it took until 2022 after being made redundant for something where I actually decided I'm gonna seek therapy and understand what I could do differently and actually try and unpack things. And by no means am I perfect by any way on that, but it's still learning, just some techniques of like, just take a moment, just take a step back, just understanding what you need at that moment to maybe take yourself out of a situation like that. And I think my behavior has evolved as a result, and I think improved. I hope improved, but it's a constant evolution, constantly learning, constantly managing different relationships and ways of doing things.
The world requires different stuff of us, so there's that bit changing. In the context of customer experience, we're never there. There's never a set destination where everything is perfect, because so many different variables are in there. And that's the same for us as humans. But what the work of therapy, as you'll have discovered, and I've had lots of therapy in my time, they don't tell you what to do. They help you reflect on the best version of you, or a better version of you, and enable you to flourish from sort of inside out. Coaching is a bit different, where somebody might say, let's work out where you are now, where you want to be. It's a bit more kind of processy. But even then, they don't tell you what to do, and a counselor doesn't tell you what to do. You've got to look in the hard places inside you, and in those shadows lies the gold.
And you talked about it being a changing world. Obviously, there's all kinds of things changing now with AI and technology. How has that impacted mental health in the workplace?
So, as you would have probably discussed AI with different people, it is lowest entry level. You're getting it to do things that you could do to save you time. But now we're doing that. It's being used in quite a carefree and lackluster way. People are sort of using it like a glorified Google search, and it's not. I don't think it's really helping, because it doesn't really. The language that comes out of it and how people just cut and paste that doesn't really connect with other humans. So, in the context of somebody seeking support on their mental health, for example, it would tell you what you want to hear, and you can cut and paste that emotionally for yourself. But that is not what good therapy is about. Good therapy would be about somebody challenging you and getting you to pause and reflect and go into that. And I think good uses of AI are where you can create things you hadn't previously thought of or done. And there is potential for it. In the context of mental health, people are, for example, using it as interim checking in therapy. It gives people attention and affection, which can be quite nice and pleasant when we're feeling on your own. But on the other end of it, people are massively using it for grievances, and it's 20-page clogging up of employee relations systems is really painful for a lot of organizations. So it is, as with general use of AI, it's good and it's bad and it's everything in between on mental health.
I think that's really intriguing as well. Of like, there's so much about confirmation bias within AI. Like, even of it wants to make you happy. So if you don't know that, you're going to get the best answers. You're going to have everything confirmed that you thought, unless you tell it to not do that. And that's something people aren't used to. Of like, you have to think of AI, even like Claude and ChatGPT and the more sophisticated models, still treat it like it's a teenager, like it's a trainee. Of like, it could be there to help you, but if it doesn't know what it's actually meant to do, then it will just, say, yeah, absolutely, that's a great idea for you.
Yeah, that's right. And that has its dangers, because you can end up confirming, or then go, oh, that's okay, it doesn't really matter, you're wonderful, and here's why. It's not that you're that, it's because you're, and that may or may not be true. It just chooses the words that it thinks you want to hear. And I recognize why that's appealing, because when we are in a difficult place, life is giving us a kicking, perhaps we feel lonely and isolated or abandoned, those unmet care needs from a human emotional point of view are very readily met by an AI that sounds like it knows what it's talking about. And that therein lies the danger, because you can end up becoming attached, genuinely emotionally attached to that false positive, if you like.
So I think it's quite intriguing for me as well where technology is going. So I think my wife's ADHD doesn't necessarily recognize emotions, but can recognize the undertone feelings. So she's got an app that she's recently started using where instead of trying to say what it is what the emotion is, she'll say, I'm feeling this, this, and this. And then it will look at it and go, that means you're probably feeling distressed, or you're feeling this, you're feeling that. So it's helping her to navigate the minefield of the emotions she's feeling and understand and recognize those emotions. So for all the negative, there is also positive as well when it's used well.
Yeah, there is. And so got that app will itself be using a process of observation and translation. And when we are trying to support somebody in the workplace, that's actually quite useful. So this idea of empathy, people often describe it as walking in someone's shoes or feeling as if they feel, is actually a process. It's not an innate talent that I'm born with or not. It's about me going, oh right, Chris, you're telling me this. Okay, that sounds like that's probably hard for you. Is that right? And you go, yeah, it's really hard. And I go, okay, thanks for telling me. What do you think? What are the root causes of that? What do you want to do with that? And that's like that version of empathy is really helpful for the individual, because it doesn't mean that I'm summarizing or I have to have all the answers, but it means that I'm just observing you. I've got the right questions, and I'm coaching in a way you to come up with your own solution. So you're still staying within yourself. You're still owning the problem, but I'm reflecting back and creating sort of relational depth whereby I can kind of communicate the way you're feeling, but without feeling it myself.
Yeah.
And maybe that's what the app is doing. Really helpful for OT people and ADHD people who just need to get a grip on all the things they're feeling simultaneously. Yeah.
In fact, if I think about technology myself, so I use a Garmin Forerunner. I've used the Garmins for years for running, and I know it can track all kinds of things, but I actually started taking it off at night because it was tracking my sleep, and I found no matter how well I felt I'd slept, you turn it on and it would say, nah, you got at least an hour less, and it wasn't very good. And I found that just having the data telling me the opposite of what I was thinking. I was waking up feeling refreshed, and then the data was telling me, no, you slept badly. I found that was having an impact on the way I was then feeling and my mentality through that day. So I now just look at it and go, right, well, I'm going to try and get 7.5, 8 hours in. And if I do that, then I'm good.
That sounds good to me. It's like going out for a run. You're thinking, yeah, I'm doing this. And somebody cruises past you, without breaking sweat, and you suddenly think, "Oh right," or or you look at yourself and you kind of, you tuck in your tummy a bit. You go looking in the mirror and go, "Yeah, you'll do," and then you stand on the scales and go, "Oh God." So I think technology can ruin your day, and the way in which we are going for optimal this and that can lose the point a bit. We might stop having the ice cream or the glass of wine or the late night that makes life fun, if that's your thing.
And I think without diving into how many different therapies have I had over the years. So you talked there about jumping on the scales, having looked at yourself in the mirror and it ruining things. And I think, so I've not weighed myself in over a year, but I have gone through food therapy for the first time. I don't know if I've actually spoken of this at all publicly. So this is a new one for me. We'll see how it goes emotionally. But I found I'd go up and down weight wise. And I decided to chat to a friend about it, and she recommended someone who has been absolutely superb and actually just re-educated my mind on, what is actually good for you in terms of what fuels you and why you might feel certain ways. And it all came down to, towards moves and away moves. And now I'll look at it and go, well, I used to, because I go away with work quite a lot, so there'd be a takeaway involved. And if there'd been a takeaway involved, I'd then write off the rest of the day and kind of go into a very there was a phrase for it. I'm just trying to think of it. I cannot think of it. It sounds like an indie band. Yeah, there was an effect which I cannot remember what it was, but essentially it's when you take something away, you then start to miss it more. And actually, just by sorting out my own relationship with food, I found that I don't necessarily care as much now. I'm in a much mentally freer place. To your point, the technology, even though it was just a bathroom scale, technology was ruling my life and my decisions, because then if I wasn't happy with it, then I'd go on a calorie counter and then there was no good happening from that. So I think it's all, how do these lots of, you talked about optimizing everything, that need to optimize actually is not necessarily something that works well for your mental health.
No, no. Well, I think what you've spoken about is, it sounds like a kind of sense of you're in constant withdrawal from something, but that something is something that you don't actually need. And sugar is a fantastic example of that, and will set off all the dopamine triggers in anticipation of having it. Ask any drug user before the score. That's what's going on. It's very powerful. Ask people. I mean, I think that's one of the reasons why we also keep turning to our screens when we've got nothing to do, because our brain's going, oh yeah, hang on a second, there's a thing that you did that made you feel good once, and if you do that again you might feel good again. And this is a kind of gamble. It's a kind of fruit machine. It's scrolling colored images with the principle of variable reward, which you get in fruit machines and you get on reels, and it's doing the same thing to us, and it's giving us these little micro hits. It's extremely powerful. I'm finding myself in this place at the moment of kind of, why am I doing this? But my thumb is still going.
It's learned behavior, isn't it? I've started
Oh,
using the Be Present app. Again, it was Georgia that recommended it, of like just trying to reduce down the amount you're using these things. And while you were talking, the term he used was the abstination violation deficit. And it's
ooh,
that,
okay.
yeah, and I just thought that sounded like a band that would appear on like the John Peel show as well at some point. But it's all that thing of it. It's difficult to do, but if you make something too hard, then you're actually going to fight against it. Um, Tom, I was going to have one more question in the first half,
Mm,
and I had a couple in mind. But in terms of customer experience, um, in contact centers, what we're seeing more and more now is with things like automation and with things like auto summarization and task assistance, what we're asking of our humans is actually more complex. There's not an easy call now. There's not 3 minutes of wrap time to enjoy and relax. It's complex after complex after complex, be that what's needed or from an emotional standpoint. So how do we best support those agents moving forward?
well, I used to work in corporate responsibility in a large corporate, and part of this corporate was in insurance. And you can guess that they had answer the telephone in a certain number of rings, spend no more than 10 minutes on, that kind of thing. And we said customers would come on, they'd get on, they get through very quickly. But when the 9 minutes started clicking around, the agent would start wrapping up the call in order to meet that KPI, and then they'd be booted out, and then they have to rejoin the system, by which time they were distressed customer into the same system, got through very quickly, had to explain everything again, started to get angry, and so on and so forth. And the net promoter score in that environment was minus. And they abandoned all their arbitrary KPIs and said to people, you can have as long as you need with any customer, the single KPIs, you get that person fixed. Then you can take a break. If it's long, if it's difficult, if it's for whatever reason upsetting, then you can go, they put on free breakfast and that kind of thing to encourage people in. And it was just became, from a psychological safety point of view, a place of flow. And you could take your time and you could connect and you could really be present with the person who's on the phone. You're not on the phone to you because they're having a good day. They're either going to give you money or there's a problem, or something's gone wrong in their life.
Yeah.
And
No one's
so,
calling up with a good time, are they?
right, yeah, hey, just thought I'd let you know that I'm really happy with my renewal premium. So I just didn't. So if you give your contact center the space and time and skills to hold that relation with somebody who needs you, and you meeting their care needs, you'll very quickly turn that person into a friend. And indeed, in this particular call center environment, they turn their net promoter from a big negative into a big positive. So that's what I say: is allow humans to be humans. And if you're in a sales environment, your people can do sales. That's why they're in sales. So your job is to provide a working context that's safe and supportive so I can be at my best. Then I can sell my beer or jam or insurance or whatever, holidays. And I'll be able to read it in the voice of the person in that contact center, what kind of an emotional place they are in. And then I'll mirror that and so on and so forth. And it can be either a very positive experience or a very difficult one.
And I think what you say there is all very valid. It might cause some in customer experience to come out in hives at the idea of let's throw away all the metrics, but we're talking autonomy, we're talking psychological safety, and I think the more you're wedded to metrics, the more that is harder to attain.
Yeah, so I was just to recap on that, all the arbitrary metrics, the one that the stuff that you've chosen to put in there because you think it is going towards a positive thing, but actually creates value fail in the system. So I don't think things should be completely structureless and rudderless. I think we absolutely need to fixate on a North Star of what the outcome is. And that's your KPI. That's your mission. And be able to describe that to your call center, contact center employees to go, when we get this right, you are hearing the smile in a customer's voice. They are thanking you. They're asking you for your name so they can find the customer thing and go on Trustpilot and do that. That's what our KPIs are, I think. And this is very easy for us to say.
Yes.
I recognize that in the 90s and 2000s, it was send everything out to overseas call centers because it was cheaper there, and people in the UK effing hated it, generally speaking. It's leveled up a bit, but now when you're saying to somebody, it's okay, we'll just get a robot to do that. We'll get automated voice to do that. I know the voice is getting better. I know that the service is getting better on that. But I know exactly how long it takes me to end a call with somebody who I think is not human. Doesn't matter what they're talking about. It's just gone. It's done. It's dead. Because and it might save you a few pounds per call, but it might well ruin the overall lifespan of my relationship with you.
Very, very pressing point to end our first half with. Well, Tom, let's take a break there. For those listening and watching, we'll just say take a slight pause and we'll see you in a moment.
Your call is important to us. Please hold and you'll be connected to your next favorite customer experience shortly.
Welcome back, folks, to my favorite customer experience. My guest this week is Tom Oxley from Bamboo Mental Health. And Tom, we talked a lot about the human connection and life with mental health and customer experience and where it's moving towards. But on the second half, we asked you to share a favorite customer experience with us.
Okay. Well, I'm going to take you to a campsite on the coast of Norfolk, where I go to. It's a place called Waxham. Waxham Sands is the name of the campsite, and I've been holidaying there in a tent by the dunes. You can hear the rumble of the sea, so it's all pretty nice. But they used to have a shop on site, and it was filled with probably some of the most kind of wonderfully out of date, like 10, 20 years, not like not like out of date food or anything like that, but it was just sort of timeless and oddities, and it was just beautiful because it was such a trove and people were rummaging around and kids were out there, and it felt like a sort of sense of freedom and exploration, and even though it was selling kind of sugary plastic stuff. And the people who owned this or ran this, they're responsible for the stock and they're responsible for the service and stuff like this, were just superb with the children. I mean, I knew a sweet shop in the 80s where you went in there, and if you weren't shouted out by the owner, then something had gone wrong, right? But at this occasion, the people who ran this, so if something we witnessed was they saw kids being mean to other kids, they would stop them and go, "Oi, you guys, you know what you just said? Do you know how you would have felt about that?" And they were like, "Oh," sort of looking at their sort of muddy knees and stuff like that. And they would get involved, and they were a weird combination of running a complete treasure trove. They sold stuff that made you feel like it was as fun as seeing as a dealer you lit up in such a wonderful way. But they also had that knack of understanding their customer and prepared to get involved in that very human way. So it's a really lovely combination of things in that shop. Yeah. That's probably my story. I know it's got a few layers in there, isn't it?
No, I mean, we were talking before the break about sugar and dopamine and things, and that's been, I've had a sweet tooth all my life, and there's something about going into something that's a bit old worldy and there being a stick of rock and a load of jars of pick and mix and all that kind of thing. It takes you back to even when I was growing up, like a quarter of something, or or even even less than slightly quarter of something if you were trying to have a few things, or penny sweets and two penny sweets and that kind of thing. It takes you back into, that was, trying to get a whole bag of sweets out of 30p is something that I don't think you could achieve nowadays. But
No,
I don't know what that would be now. But there's something magical about that.
Yeah, they had that magical kind of sugary addiction stuff. They had that absolutely wrapped up. But they did something else, because I think people loved it way more than the anticipation of a sugar hit. And parents knew that they could send their children in there and they could all that sort of that chucking the bikes down outside, like in a sort of 80s movie. They're running in and causing this kind of mild mayhem, and then getting all the stuff they want, paying next to nothing, complete tap, out they come, happy as Larry, and they want to do it again by the afternoon. It was a brilliant business model, if you like.
Yeah, I mean, I'm casting my mind back to camping trips in the 90s where, multiple visits to the shop and nothing really achieved other than making sure I go back there later on for something plastically or sugary.
Quite. If you were providing something really nice, so the kids were going to go there and then kind of give the opportunity for the parents to kind of, drink or have a cigarette or have a cuddle or whatever. And I think it does. I think when you get your stuff right from a customer experience point of view, then other really good things happen around it and off the back of it. And there are places, particularly restaurants, where I'll go back because it gives you more than the meal. It's a more than event for us, and we begin to recommend it and we look forward to it, and it just becomes a thing that you do. And this particular campsite, I mean, I've tried to say to my daughter, well, should we do something else? Should we look abroad? Should we look at a pool? Should we, it's nice to have those, to even think about those kind of choices. But she's like, absolutely no way. I want to go there. And they're barely looking at phones. They're running around, they're crashing around, and it's like they're falling off stuff, and there's the odd grazed knee and a few tears to wipe up, and that's brilliant. They are. I think the seaside is a magical place because I've enjoyed it, but you can see a connection with younger people, well away from screens and the anxieties of buying online stuff without the experience. Just that's a pure dopamine. And maybe I'm being harsh on it. Maybe people like the foraging around Vinted and stuff like that. But there's something gorgeous about it, and they feel there's a very human restoration after a holiday like that. They're satisfied. They're full up. They come back, they walk different, they slow down. Everything is different. They're trying to get outside and look outside. I think it's quite a lovely human experience when you get it right.
I think you touched on something there as well of like I'll use Vinted and eBay and various things to find vintage cricket tops and various other things that I've mild addictions to. But when it comes to buying presents, there is nothing better than going to a physical shop, because when you're online, you have to know what you're looking for, or the cookies have to know you're looking for something very random. Whereas a shop can be completely different. It's a physical experience. You never know necessarily what you're going to get, and that adds another dimension to what you can do. And I think what you've talked about in the first half and the second half is ultimately it's about human connection as well.
I'd say there is something about walking somewhere. We're not designed to sit as humans. We're designed to walk or lie, generally speaking, lie down. And walking somewhere, foraging, so the act of searching, and then that discovery of, oh, right, and then buying it, and then, properly gifting it and waiting for that moment, that as a process feels very nourishing for us, compared to often a lot of the purchases we're making are instantaneous, wrapped in plastic. We haven't moved for them. We get our food to our door, for example. We don't walk for it. We don't forage for it. We don't even need to prepare a lot of it. We shovel in the calories, but without any of the little bits of community that you get around it as well. So I'm self-employed, and the background here is a third bedroom, and this is a lot of my world. And unless I go out of it and go and post some letters or buy some oranges or whatever it is, I don't see people. Can easily do a day without seeing people. And when I've got my head down in a project, that's fine. When I'm not, then I can start to feel the pains of loneliness and isolation. And that is very distressing on the body. We are designed to be with people and do things with them on the whole. And we know that when we are isolated, not through choice, and lonely, the body will produce cortisol as if it's under threat. And that can be kind of actually physiologically damaging in the long run. So hence back to this human connection thing, it's important for us, touch and the little hairs on our skin, and the way we vibe is about the vibrations that happen between people in the same room. And I don't want that all the time, God no. But but there are times when I really, really want that, and I need that as part of my self-care. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, after tell me on Thursday evening that I want to mix with a lot of humans, and I'll tell you absolutely not, having spent 2 days at a trade event. But I'm absolutely with you. There'll be days where I'll have my head down and I'll look back at this thing and it will tell me I've done 0 steps, and it'll be like, and I feel more fatigued than if I had spent the same day going around town doing the same amount of meetings, because I just haven't got my head out of my own. This is a converted garage. If I don't leave here, then it's trying to find that time. That's the big thing I'm taking away from this as well. Of take that walk, have that autonomy over your own time, and human connection being the major thing there.
I think that is it, but in the way that is right for you. Because I too, after a trade event, I will have, honestly, I feel like I've used up all my words. I almost feel tearful. I've just met so many new faces and that sort of thing. So I'm exhausted. I'm overwhelmed. I've probably got to do a few hours traveling. off the back of food that I haven't made for myself and stuff like that. And it all layers up.
Yep.
My advice to people who live in this constant high performance type environment is to be a bit more intentional and just observe about how you're working and the relationship between you and your work and how that is making you feeling. This idea of smashing it led to me with 3 months unable to work. And so there is that extreme version of it. But over time, my plea is for you, for other people to play the long game with their career. You can't dance down the wicket every over, can you? Because inevitably something's gonna go wrong. Your career is not this smash and grab experience. It's a slow walk marathon. And if you want to have these beautiful things called dendrites that are little tree-like things that communicate between our neurons, and if you want in our brain, and if you want to have some of those left over for your retirement or family at the end of the day, or grandchildren, whatever it might be, or you, then breaks and honoring your own energy, and if it's aligning to the right things and connecting with humans, that all these things are part of the complex algo of you and your well-being.
And for any Americans wondering what dancing down wickets means, essentially you can't hit a home run every time. And I think it's, one of the things I find, being more of a technical person as well, is I'm at my best when I give myself time to play and to be inquisitive and to go and test things and break stuff and figure it out. And I've found I'm at my worst when I haven't done that for a while. So I try and make sure I've got something every week where I'm just being inquisitive, where I'm getting to know a new product or getting to test something. But Tom, lovely to chat to you today. Where can people find out more about you?
Well, search me up, Bamboo Mental Health. I've got a TEDx talk out there. Unbelievably, there's somebody else called Tom Oxley who's got a much more proficient TEDx about spinal columns and things like that. But mine is about mental health at work, Bamboo Mental Health, and I'm on LinkedIn if people want to find me in that business context.
Perfect. We'll put a few links in the show notes for that. And Tom, thank you very much for joining my favorite customer experience.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for sharing your stuff, and I hope you look after yourself as well.
Thank you very much. And folks, thank you very much for joining us. We'll be back in just a moment. That was probably the most open and rawest chat we've had on my favorite customer experience. Wasn't quite anticipating going into quite the level of detail I did about my journey in the last couple of years and things, but actually chatting to Tom felt really easy to be open and vulnerable and talk about a few things with regards to my own mental health and with regards to what it's like trying to grow your own business and actually talking about that human connection. And there will be days where I don't leave these four walls, and actually that's not healthy at all. So getting out there, going for a walk, getting the brain working, playing with stuff, it all makes a difference. And I think what was really interesting there about what Tom was saying in the first half as well was, we have all of these metrics, these success criteria, these goals. Tom talked about looking to optimize everything being the way we do things now. And actually, if we look at how we can strip some of that back to what is important, what is our North Star? That was a phrase that Tom used of, what is it that we are aiming for as our overall goal? And that for that insurer, it was, let's make sure that that customer's issue is resolved first time and you have the autonomy to do what you need to around that. The average handle time metric, the 10-minute call limit got leveled, all that kind of stuff. And it was all about empowering the individuals to help the customer for the right outcome. I think there's a lot to learn from that, and it was a wonderful chat. Still, Still feeling a little bit vulnerable here, to be honest, after having that conversation, but a really, really nice conversation. And if you want to know more about Tom, obviously all the links are in the show notes and things. Great person to connect to. And thank you very, very much for listening. If you'd like to learn more about what we do at Holt CX Consultancy, we're an agnostic contact center and customer experience consultancy based here in the UK, but with a global reach, then feel free to connect to me on LinkedIn. There's links in all the show notes. And thank you very much for watching or listening. We'll see you again in a couple of weeks' time.
Thank you for listening to My Favorite CX. Your listenership is important to us. On your keypad, please press a number between 1 and 5 to rank how much you've enjoyed your experience.